finally, it was 1979, okay, and I'd been practicing and whatever and working odd jobs to keep my head above water and what have you. And I went down to Provincetown because my parents at this time had moved to the Cape, Mid-Cape, East Dennis. So we'd go down and visit them when I could get away from my jobs, you know, and it was nice down the Cape, especially in the summer. So I went down there, and it was like April, maybe the end of March. Conrad was spinning there on the weekends, you know. So I went in and I said, listen, Conrad, I said, you know, I don't know if you're looking for an alternate DJ, but, you know, I'm looking for work, and, you know, I have residents down here, blah, 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 you know. And he said, no, I'm all set right now, but, you know, I'll keep that in mind. And I said, okay, all right, thanks. And, you know, I never thought of it. And like I said, I used to go down there a couple of times a month anyways, and I'd always, you know, have supper with my mom and dad and the kids, whoever was there. And then I'd take mom's car, drive to P-Town, that hour-long drive, you know, and go to the back room. And Conrad would be there, and I knew Conrad, and, you know, we'd have, you know, hi, how you doing? You know, so finally, it was around, must have been around Memorial Day. And I came in, you know, unexpectedly, done a night off, and he said, are you still looking for work? And I said, yeah. I said, you know, I'd like to be an alternate, you know, and here, whatever. And he said, well, he said, there's an opening, you know, I'm going to need somebody. And he says, and I have a cottage, and blah, 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 and we could share the cottage, and I'm going to work these days, and you work these days. I said, okay. So that went on. Well, a couple of weeks afterwards, he came down. He went back to Boston with his boyfriend, Michael, I think. And he came down. I think it was my night to work and his night off, and they didn't want to stay at the cottage. And Toronto was very special. And he took me out to dinner with Michael and got a bottle of wine and everything. And then he told me about Buddies, which I had no idea about. And he said, well, he said, there's a bar opening on Boylston Street, so they better call it Buddies. And the white man has blue hair. And it was like, really? And I was like shocked. And he said, yeah. And I was like so happy for him, you know. And then he said, well, I was thinking, you know, you could be my alternate there too.
Now, who opened Buddies again?
There was 10 owners.
Okay.
3 were visible, but the rest of them were all like, they nothing to do, just collect the money. You know. And it was a wonderful setup organization. We had profit pension sharing, insurance, everything. It was just the best gig I ever had, you know. And Conrad and I started, and what happened was that Conrad wanted to work the weekends down in P-Town, of course, you know. And the bar opened in June, and he said, you go up and work the bar in Boston during the weekends, and I want to be down here. You know. And I said, but Conrad, you know, that's the weekends. You know, don't you think you should, you know, get up there and work the weekends and get them used to you or what have you? You know, I would have. Because at Labor Day, you know, boom, this is over. You know, and that's going to be your job from forever as long as, you know, you can cap it. And he said, no, you know, I'm not worried about that. And he said, you know, we'll have Anthony Porter work tea dance. He said, I think Tony could do a good tea dance. And I said, oh, fine, whatever you say is fine. But then Conrad became unhappy there very early on, before the fall finished. And he didn't like the sound system. And it wasn't like a Bozak or Uri mixer. I don't know if Uris were even out then, but he was unhappy with the sound system.
And this was at the back?
This was at Buddies.
At Buddies.
Okay, and it was 1979. They just had opened their doors a couple of months.
Yeah.
And Conrad wanted the whole sound system ripped out to the very last wire and have a Lou Feldman JBL system put in. Yeah. Which was, of course, would be better, but there was nothing wrong with the sound system that was there. I mean, and they were a new club. They couldn't afford to do that. So Conrad was very disappointed and upset, and he said he was going to quit, you know. And I said, no, don't do that, Conrad. You're foolish. You just work on that sound system. Eventually, you know, things might turn. But he was, you know, sometimes people can be their own worst enemies, you know. And that's exactly what happened. And we went back to his house, and we had subs and everything, and we were talking, and I was trying to convince him, you know, stay, you know, it's fucked up because, you know, you'll have this job forever. It's going to, I can tell it's going to be a great thing, you know. Right. No. And then he said, because he said, you know, to his boyfriend, he goes, yeah, Michael doesn't want me to quit either. And I said, no, he's right, you shouldn't. But he quit. And so after he quit, they had a meeting with George Borden, the Boston Record Pool, and Lou Feldman. And they came in, and George Borden from the Record Pool threatened. They said, you know, well, you know, if you fire Conrad and this and that, because I wasn't in the Record Pool yet. He said, you know, you're not going to have any acts to come here and this and that. And they were trying to, you know, scare the owners and boycott them. And the manager, Jack Rubin, at the time, you know, pull a fast one on them so they could get this new system in. And of course, Lou Feldman was there going, oh, this is so inferior, this needs this, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So finally it came down, and the owners and the manager said, look, you either work here and you work on this system, or you don't work here, okay? Because we can't rip every wire out of here. We just can't do it, you know. So we just quit. So I went back into town after the lunch back at Conrad's, where I said, don't do it, you're crazy. And I said, I better go check and see if I still have a job. Conrad, I think, wanted me to walk with him, you know. And I went back in, and I asked Jack Rubin, the manager, do I have a job here? He says, I don't give a shit. You can have all 8 shifts, you know, tea dance on Sunday and everything. I said, well, I can't do that, but, you know, thanks for the vote of confidence. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't quit. I mean, I've been waiting all my career to finally get me a big break. Mm-hmm. And Buddy's turned into the perfect platform for me to showcase my talent. It was like a very unique bar. The location, Copley Square, was it at the times. This time, I don't know where it is now, but I mean,
Club Cafe is about the only place left in the city proper, really.
Right, and I mean, walking around the city on these past 6 days, from being from Florida and how it was when I lived here, I mean, it's all baby carriages and children. It was never like that in the city when we. I mean, there was no man's land, the black section, the gay section, and the Back Bay section. You know, that could afford it, but it was all adults. There was no children ever.
And it was arguably more affordable then too.
Oh,
right?
good
I mean, it was,
God, yeah.
Boston has always been an expensive city to some degree, but there were pockets of places where the rent wasn't.
Our first apartment on West Canton Street, which was basically across from Back Bay train station, was $200 for the whole first floor of a brownstone. And, you know, I mean, and that included the telephone. You know, I mean, so for $200, Philip and I used to split $100, and, you know, we'd just dance around in town. But, of course, there was burnt-out shells every other house in the South End.
Right.
It wasn't like it is today.
Right.
You know, so, and some streets were good streets and some bad, like New York. You know, you don't walk down that street because there was a group that hung on down the corner, you know.
Right.
So we used to run, basically, from the South End and run to Copley Square.
Yeah.
You know, and then...